Hey guys, Danny Johnson here, and today I'm going to tell you the story of my 2001 Ford Mustang GT. My twin brother Justin and I loved cars growing up, and we did everything together, played with cars, and when we were 16, we were extremely lucky to get this 1997 V6, laser red, 5-speed, beautiful car. It was only 4 years old at the time. And so we were told at first that my parents didn't believe in teenagers having cars. There was really no need for it, but it was a passion for us. And so my sister had seized the engine in my mom's Volvo. And so while my dad was fixing it, they decided to buy us a car that we could kind of share in the meantime. And so we were thrilled to have this car. We learned so much about Mustangs with it. And our parents didn't want us to have jobs at the time either, so we're kind of stuck at home helping babysit the other kids. My parents were at the airport, so we were helping, tend while they were doing their flight school. And so one day we actually found another one in Chicago, and they let us fly back with them and drive it home. So we got extremely lucky going from, thinking we weren't going to have a car at all to having twin Mustangs. So of course these being V6s, they had some things about them. The wheels were one. We got some 17x9 Cobra R's for them, which really helped the car look a lot better. And we always wanted to have a little bit more power, and we kind of craved the V8 sound that we would hear if we'd go to lots and start up other cars. But we also wanted to be very grateful that we were given these cars, and so we were happy to have them. However, in college one day, we got hit by somebody, and they did the Titanic all the way down the side, and it hit the axle and bent it. And so it totaled the car out, and we were extremely sad to see that, because this is a car that we had taken care of for years, and we had not let sit out in the rain. We would polish it. And so now to see it in this condition, and the adjuster just said, yeah, this car's gone. Well, he was nice enough to actually sell us the car back for almost nothing. He paid us out like $4,000 or something. And so I started tearing into it, took the door off, and was trying to fix everything that I could, and ordered a new axle. So I took the 7.5-inch open-end axle off and replaced it with a really nice GT axle that came factory with 373s. Already installed, so it was kind of a nice upgrade for the car, because before the car would only light up one tire, so now I had positive traction in it, and it would actually do both. I got a door off of eBay, and we took it to the body shop after that, and with the money remaining from the insurance, they were able to put the car back together, and it looked really nice. So they did a really good job, and we continued to enjoy the car for several years. But of course, we always wanted to have that V8, right? So, and then here's a picture my brother found. Hopefully that's not the car, because we did end up selling it. But the main reason I bring it up is because, these Mustangs, as much as we love them, it was the V6, so you had the dinky exhaust pipe out the back, you had the 15-inch wheels, the sound obviously was not the same sound as a V8, and there was a 2000 GT on the lot at the same time for $20,000, so there's no way we would have been able to afford it. And so, we really did enjoy the cars, and we pieced them together the best that we could. We got the true dual takeoffs. So when Saleen and Roush were upgrading their New Edge Mustangs, they were selling the catbacks. And so, we put that on the car, and it looked a lot better. We loved the way the exhaust looks with duals. We got the bigger wheels. But, Justin and I, we would thumb through the owner's manual and look at the differences between the gauges that it showed for the GT and the V6, and then the engine diagrams and everything. And we really wanted to have a V8, of course, but we still loved the V6s for what they were. So just a few months after I got married, we were enjoying the Mustang. My wife had a little Honda Civic, and we went to the car lot, and this is a reenactment here. This is the car lot that I found this 2001 Mustang GT. And I remember feeling the wing and seeing the Oxford white just seemed like a thick color. White wasn't my first choice, but I saw the GT badge that I had always envied, and the dual exhaust, and I thought to myself, wow, this is a 14-second quarter-mile car. So times have changed, but that was fast at the time. Seeing that it was a 5-speed car, I just thought, man, this thing is so fast. And looking at that huge hood scoop, I love the 01 GT's hood scoop. And, this one had the parchment color interior, which, I liked black, but I was okay with it. I kind of liked this nice brown sweater that I had that matched. But looking at the car on the lot, it really brought back a lot of the things that I wanted when I was in high school with, the V8, the dual exhaust, just the new edge body style, and, just everything about the car kind of spoke to me, even though it was white. And, at the same time, I was kind of in that position where I'm asking my wife if I can get it or not, and it's kind of what's in town. If I can get it, I might have a better chance rather than trying to convince her to fly across the country and get one. And I don't know why, but it's always November, so is when I love buying a new car. Maybe it's cooling down a little bit, sweater weather, all that. But anyway, I remember going to the lot several times, trying to negotiate with them. They had it listed for like 9,100, and I was like, hey, it has this dent in the back, it's leaking a little bit, and they were like, yeah, come on in, and we'll figure something out. And then we came in, and they still wouldn't really budge on the price, which kind of ticked me off because they're making it sound like they were going to give me a much better deal for it. But in the end, I got it for about $8,500. And so this GT had about 95,000 miles on it. And I remember going into the glove box because there's a little trick you can do. If you push the glove box down and you collapse the sides in, it'll drop all the way down. And then all the paperwork that's been shoved into the glove box and flipped over the back side will come out. And so I found old receipts for tires and taking it into the Ford dealership and having some work done on it and everything. So it was kind of interesting to see its past. We decided that we would sell my wife's Honda Civic. She had a little hatchback, EG, and then we kept the other red Mustang for her to drive. And so that was something that ultimately she would have a hard time with identity, and made it look like I was making all the decisions and buying the Mustang and making her drive another Mustang. But at any rate, we were newlywed. We were in our first apartment at the time, so we didn't really have a place to park it in a garage or anything. And so anyway, we ended up buying the car, and I remember parking it under the awning as close to the pole as I could so no one would ding my doors. And I remember when we were buying it, how my wife was barely agreeing to it. Then over the phone, I'm calling for insurance, and they told me the new total, and I just felt like I got punched in the gut and couldn't say anything because she was already kind of iffy about getting the car. And I was like, oh no, what am I getting myself into? And so anyway, we enjoyed it at our little apartment. And I just loved everything about the car, the GT badge, the V8, the sound. It was bone stock, but it still sounded really good. And I really liked these wheels on it. They weren't flashy. They were kind of the painted silver, and some people call them starfish or whatever. But I really liked the design, and 17s were a lot bigger than the 15s that I had on my Mustang in the beginning. But I thought it looked good. And this car was a big motivation to me as I would take it out to work and to college, and it meant something to me, and it helped me really get through college and my job and everything like that. So I think cars have a good motivation, and that's why this car was so important to me at the time. And I jokingly parked here at the college, and I thought, man, they're going to get mad at me for teasing them and lining up next to all these other cop cars during their police training. But, then the car started giving me a little bit of trouble. It started misfiring as I was going up a hill under load. It would jolt a little bit, and I would research what I could, and it sounded like it would be a coil pack. So I went to AutoZone, and I switched out the coil pack. I bought one new one, and I switched it out to each of the cylinders, and then, I gave up. I swapped them all out except for the one that was under the intake because I didn't have the tools to take the intake off. And then I just kind of gave up, and I said, I don't have time for this or anything, so I'll just take it to Ford and I'll let them diagnose it and fix it. They're professionals, everything like that. And so I remember being at work, and I kept checking my phone on break and seeing if they got to the car or not. And they called back and they said, well, we can't find anything, so go ahead and come in and pay for the diagnostic fee. That's about $90. And so I called them back and I said, no. I said, I'm not going to pay you for not finding a problem. And so they said, well, we'll call you back in a minute. And so then they did call back later that day, and it kind of hurt me because they were like, we did get the car to misfire. And I'm like, oh, what'd you have to do that? But they said, so we put a new coil pack in it. It was the one that was under the intake. And I was like, dang it. In fact, I had even told them, check the coil packs. I said, that's what I think it might be. And so they said, okay, so your total will be $300. And I said, no, I didn't say anything about fixing it. I just wanted it diagnosed because I was pretty sure I knew along the lines what the problem was. And so I went in, paid the $90 for them, for basically me telling them what was wrong with it. And then I learned, from now on, for the price of diagnostic, I'm just going to throw parts at it myself. And when I was at work one day, I noticed that it kept losing coolant. And I was out in the parking lot on my break one day, and I'm revving the car up, and I'm trying to figure out what's happening, and all of a sudden, out of the intake manifold, it shoots coolant right at my chest, and I'm like, whoa, what just happened? And so I looked and started researching it, and remember, the internet wasn't very big yet, YouTube wasn't really big yet, and I found that, the intake manifolds were prone to cracking, and so I said, okay, well, I'll go to AutoZone and get some new gaskets and get it all fixed up. Now, this is very difficult because it is money. It's all money trying to fix this. It's time. It's trying to get it done while still going to college. It's trying to pay for it while still going to college and not having a lot of money. And we were working up at my parents' aircraft hangar, and we were just using whatever tools we could really find. Luckily, my dad had a good amount of tools, but his were more geared towards aviation. And so I was trying to just scrimp and find whatever tool I could find to work. And so that took longer too. And being inexperienced definitely took longer. But anyway, we started tearing into the intake manifold, and we took it all the way apart, put it back together, started it up, and it was leaking again. And I could not figure it out. And so then my dad walks in, and I say, hey, Dad, what's going on? I put this thing all the way back together, and it's leaking. And he looked at it, and he said, look at the bottom of your intake manifold. And it had individual gaskets around each of the ports. And he said, now look at the strip gasket that's on the car. He said, it looks like somebody double gasketed it. So what had happened, as we found out, is somebody took it to Ford to have it fixed, and they got the updated intake manifold that seals around each of the ports. And they were installing that, but they left the strip gasket on as well, so it did double gasket it, and that's why it would leak coolant. But this was a huge achievement for us. We had never dug this deep into a car before, and Justin was right there on my side coming in, and we were trying to get this car put back together so I could drive it to work on Monday. We're trying to do all this over a weekend, so this car had a lot of small issues that kept coming up. We ended up ordering a new power steering line, and it was hard to get that off. You needed the crow's foot, and luckily my dad had one, but it didn't quite fit. We had to put a penny in it and tape it together. Then, the air conditioning discharge hose was bad, and that's why I had to do that and get the car recharged on the air conditioning system so that it would work. And then the oil filter adapter was bad, so the gasket was bad, and so you have oil and coolant together, and they were both kind of leaking, and so we're trying to figure out what that is. It's behind the oil filter, so we ended up fixing that. But later on I'd be able to make videos on all this because of all the knowledge. So when people say, how do you know so much about Mustangs, it's because of the Mustang like this, that I had to go learn it all one by one, and then I just wanted to share that with everybody through YouTube install videos. But after working out the bugs, it was a very nice car. This was 2007 or so, so it was only one body style old, and the paint was still really nice, and it ran well. So you know how it goes. As soon as you get everything fixed and done, then it's time to sell it, right? Well, that's what my wife was thinking. And so, it was kind of hard because she would go back and forth and say, we have two Mustangs, we're going to have a family someday. And I'd say, yeah, so when we have a family, we'll get a family car. Until then, let's just drive these around. And so she had, a little trouble on her side of the family too. They were kind of like, it looks like you have two Mustangs, huh? What's going on? So I think it was an identity thing. It was hard for her, but it was hard for me because I felt like we had both decided together to buy this car. So if we were going to sell it, we should both have that same decision too. And so we would go back and forth. And, here it is snowing, and this is kind of where we named the car Snowy because of this day. But, it was hard to do all this work on the car and think, okay, I think, we're going to end up keeping it. She's going to be cool with me keeping it. And then, every once in a while she'd change her mind again. And I was trying to do the right thing for the relationship. But at the same time, I was earning this car, and I was working really hard, to support it and also go through college and everything. So, anyway, it was a lot of back and forth, and, just something that we dealt with while we were newly married, and that's part of what you do learn as you get married is you go through trials like this. And so, you know, things would kind of get better. Here it is Christmas. The car didn't have fog lights on it for some reason. Maybe it had been hit in the front or something, but here I am. You can see I was a kid on Christmas just getting fog lights for the car. That's how tight the money was and how excited that it made me. And so I remember on this Christmas, my wife tried to order a pair of fog lights for me, and they only had one, so she said the other one's on the way. It was back ordered or something, but I thought, well, this is good. She's, you know, starting to help buy parts for the car, so we must be, you know, moving more towards keeping it. And so I'm continuing to drive it to work. I'm continuing to work on it out in front of our apartment. And it was really cool at the apartment because you'd see all the other cars that everybody else was driving, a lot of them in the same situation, going to college and newlywed. And I remember our guy who lived below us had a new Mustang, and so it was cool to see the new one. And then you just kind of think, man, how does he afford that? And I think it was a company car or something. But we moved the wheels around from the other cars and really enjoyed just having it. And my brother was, you know, really liking it and wanting to buy something too, because he still just had the V6 Mustang. And so we were just enjoying everything we could for as cheap as we could. And my little sister got a V6 Mustang. My parents bought her one, and it had a set of bullets on it. And so we immediately took them off of her car and put it on mine. And this 01 GT looked outstanding, white with the bullet wheels. I just loved the look. And I thought that it looked great. It looked mean. And, you know, this was a car that we really were enjoying to have. And so we were taking it to some car shows and enjoying driving it around. And we even took it to California, to Disneyland, and I would look out the window and see it parked there. But finally it came up again, and here it was, time to sell the car. I was very upset about the idea, so we went and parked it, and I remember parking it in places like this, right on the boulevard, and writing on the back window for sale, and dropping the car off, and being so upset, you know, and just thinking about it. My brother was also kind of giving me a hard time, like, dude, tell her no, don't, you know, don't let her do this. And so anyway, our neighbor ended up buying the car, and this is where they worked, right next to where my wife worked. So I would come to see my wife and see the car parked there, although they had the windows tinted jet black. And whenever I'd talk to them, they'd say, man, we're so excited, we're going to do exhaust, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And I was just like, man, I told them, if you're ever going to sell the car, let me know. And so one day they sold it and they didn't tell me. And so we found it here on a dealership lot. And my brother would always find this car. And so we went around and test drove it again and looked at it. And I kept asking my wife, like, okay, can we get the car back? You know, it was kind of hard for me to do this. And she'd be like, no, or, you know, now's not the time. And then her dad, my father-in-law, wanted a Mazda Miata, and I found this in the same apartment buildings where we were living, a 2000 GT convertible with some C&L intakes, Borla exhaust, very nice car. And so when I showed it to him, I think he kind of wanted to tease me a little bit because he knew how much I liked the other car. And this one only had 56,000 miles, but it had been in an accident. Again, Borla exhaust sounded amazing. So he bought it, and I helped him work on it a little bit. And he'd drive it around, and I'd drool over it. And you can see the GT badge is on the wrong side, so it had been repainted. It was probably in some kind of accident, but it was a solid car. Other than that, it really drove well. So we went ahead and just kept kind of fixing it up, and he got tired of it. We loved driving it around with the top down. It was fun, sounded good, but he decided to ultimately put it up for sale and try to flip it and make some money off of it. And so I was like, well, I'm not really interested in a convertible, or I'd be, you know, all over this, because it was a good, solid car, and that was the way to get it. And that's what I told him. If you want it, if it's something you want to keep because it looks like it may have been in an accident and get into it cheap, this is the car to get. So, you know, that's why he bought it, but it didn't last too long before he, you know, was deciding to sell it and try to make a profit off of it. But it was a really cool car, and it was fun to enjoy it, at least for as little as I could. And so eventually we got into our own house, and if you want to check the video description, I'll show you that's when we also bought my Mach 1. So I had kind of moved on a little bit because the car was pretty much gone as far as I knew, but we would still see it around every once in a while. It actually was locally here in town, then went up north for college a little bit. But anyway, so right around the corner from this house that we just bought, we went and saw it sitting for sale up on the hill. And so I was like, what? That's the car. And so I brought my brother, and we went and looked at it, and we looked inside, and it had the dent in the back, and we just knew that it was the same car. It had the GT coin delete that I had put in there. So the guy came out, and he said, yeah, I'm selling the car. And I said, how much? And he said, $4,500. And I was like, that's great, because I sold it for $9,500. And he was just a working guy, so he was driving the cars down some dirt roads and stuff like that. And so I said, well, where'd you get it? And he said, because I said, I thought I saw some lady driving around who bought it. And he said, yeah, she had it, and she's about to lose it. She was my neighbor, and so I paid off her title loan, and so now I have the car. So I took it for a test drive. I drove it home. I showed my wife, and it was as if the devil had shown back up. And she was like, no, we got rid of that car, and you have a Mach 1 now, and no, it's not going to happen. So anyway, we brought it back and said, sorry, it's not going to work. And we'd see other GTs like this one that looked just like it, and every time we'd wonder if it was ours. And we would look for the dent in the back, and we would, even if it was out of town, and we're like, this is miles away, but we'd see an Oxford White Mustang GT, and we would try to see if it was it. And we would talk about, like, well, maybe we'll get another one that was just like it, but maybe even nicer. But, to me, I wanted the original car back. And I think, to me, on some level, it would be repaying me for having to get rid of it. So then Justin found where the new owner had got it, and he ran into the kid and talked to him, and he was like, yeah, I just jumped it going over a bridge. I caught air, and he was not taking care of it and just putting the stickers all over it. You could see it had the 05 to 09 GT wheels from the older guy who got it, who we were talking to before. But Justin would find this car often. And so the next place he found it was over at the college. And so here it was, and he was shocked, like, hey, that's the car. So I drove by the college because Justin said, hey, it's there every Wednesday. And it had the stickers on it from the other owner. And I even wrote a note that said, hey, this is my old car. Let me know if you ever want to sell it, or if it needs help. I'd be happy to help you fix it. I do YouTube stuff. And so driving around, reminiscing, by some apartments we used to live in, we came around the corner, and there it was. And so now we at least knew where the car lived, and so as I would drive by to work, I'd see if it was there. And then one evening, it was raining really hard, and so I was at home. My wife and I were just about to go to bed, and she's on Facebook, and she said, hey, look at this video. So this random family had posted some severe flooding that was happening in our town, and I noticed the area and recognized it, and sure enough, there's the car getting hit by all of this flood water. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, how come they don't move it around the corner? And I'm like, that's it. What are the odds that they're showing this video of this car that's basically getting flooded away? So needless to say, I couldn't sleep that night. And the next morning, I said, okay, I'm going to drive over there and just see what happened. And so, the road was completely covered from all this flood water that had happened. And I looked at the car and found it. And it's like, okay, it looked like it weathered it pretty good, and I could see some debris that was stuck under it. And I was contemplating knocking on their door and just asking if the car was okay, but I probably already freaked them out by leaving the note, to buy it back and everything. So as I was going to work and back, I would check and see if the car was still there, and it looked like it was, and it was gone one day and back. So I'm like, okay, it still runs and drives. I guess, there's nothing wrong. Well, shortly after, I randomly had a friend text message me, and he said, hey, isn't this the old car you always talk about? And his friend, who's a tow truck driver, sent this message that says, runs and drives, what a shame. It's going to go down to a salvage auction. And so he screenshotted that, and he sent it to me. And so I said to my friend, yeah, that's it. And I said, do you have your friend's phone number? And so he sent it to me, and I called him, and I said, hey, I understand you just picked up a Mustang. And he goes, yeah, I have it on the truck right now. And I said, okay, just stop where you are. I'll figure out how I can, pay the owner what the insurance is giving them, or, whatever's happening, but just take it to my house instead. And he said, yeah, let me call you back in a few minutes. Then about an hour or two went by, and he called back and said, nope, sorry, everybody's been paid, and I'm on my way down now to Vegas to drop the car off at the auction. So I will give you the PO number. And so he gave me that so I could follow the car. And he said, but sorry, I can't help you. So I immediately looked up the company that had the car, and I called and said, hey, I have a PO number on this car. And they kind of laughed at me. They said, that just went into our system. It could be months or weeks until you could even bid on it. And then I said, okay, so what's the process with that? And they said, well, do you have a dealer license or anything? And I said, no. And they said, well, then you're not going to be able to bid on it. You'll have to find somebody else who can. And so I said, okay, so what's the time frame on this? And they said, well, it depends. It could be weeks or months till the settlement's all done with insurance and they finally give us the title to the car. And they said, and you have to watch it, because if there's nothing wrong with the car, then they might just sell it and not auction it off. So you have to check every day to see the status on the car. So I was checking daily and putting the information in, and it would still come up as image not available. At first it said not found. Then it came to image not available. Then it said wait title, and it said not ready for sale, auction not assigned. And then finally pictures started coming up of the car. So I was checking this on my break, every day, twice a day. And finally the pictures came up, and I'm looking them over, and I'm like, well, last I saw it, yeah, it doesn't look like there's anything wrong. And I'm looking for maybe like a line on the car with how high the flood water went. The description said runs and drives, and so that was good news. But with a flood car, if it gets wet, it could then corrode later and then not run. The odometer wouldn't come up, which the car was doing on its own without, I guess, is what I later found out. And so they didn't have an amount for the mileage or anything like that. But I'm looking at all the pictures, and I'm just thinking, I need to get this car somehow. So I posted what was going on Facebook, and a bunch of people were accusing me of salvaging my own car or some baloney like that. And so then one guy was really nice. He said, hey, I buy cars from this auction place. Contact me. So it was really nice of him to help me like this. And so he said, okay, just put in a max bid. The car will have a salvage title now, so people shouldn't bid too high on it. And so as you can see in this posting here, it showed that the reason was flood. And so what you'll see in a minute is they changed that. And so as we were watching it and I was discussing how much to put in and do the pre-bid and everything, then all of a sudden we started to win the pre-bid. And then I messaged him because I said, hey, I just saw, now that we're winning the pre-bid, it says that it's now front end other. And so instead of it saying flood, what happened? And he said, well, that's something that the insurance adjusters will often do. If they come look at the car and they can start it and they don't see anything wrong with it, they know people are scared of water damage, so they'll just change it from flood to front end other. And so he said, I'm not going to be there. I'm in New York right now, but I'm helping you bid for it online, so just listen for our number and everything. And so anyway, I packed up and got ready and went down to Las Vegas with my twin brother. My wife also wanted to come too. Hey guys, Danny Johnson here, and we're here at the IAAI auction. So they're not going to let us in unless we pay $75 to watch and all that. So we're just listening for our bidding number to come up to know if we won the car or not. They're doing the non-running cars first, then they're going to move into the running cars, and ours is number 50 for that. And so this is the building, and if you go inside you can see where chairs are set up where you can be a guest and go in and watch it go across, but we just won't do that. We'll see if they start announcing it or how we'll be able to hear it. I don't know, but anyway, we're here and we're going to see what happens. So I looked through the fence, and at the very, very far corner, I could see it sitting there with the hood up. And so I got so excited, and I was very nervous too. I said, okay, there it is. And so I went inside, and they were telling me, sorry, you can't come in unless the person who you're bidding with is here as well. And so the security guard also got upset with me and said, stop looking through the fence, get lost. And so I walked about 20 feet away and then just kind of sat down and waited for it to come up. And so finally it came through, and they started the bidding on it, and it was really not fair because they started like revving it up to try to get people excited about bidding on it. And I was like, you're not doing that to the other cars. And so that was driving the price up.
Revving it up.
When I started getting nervous because I had put in about $3,000 as my max bid, which looking back I probably should have put more, but I was afraid that I might not get it for that, and it was too late to up the bid, and so anyway I just had to wait and see what happened. So it had all come down to just these minutes, and I was so nervous that I recorded the whole thing, and I found myself still standing there shaking, like what just happened. And I'm still recording like 3 cars that went in after mine was done, and I thought that the footage would come out real shaky because I was literally shaking. And so I messaged the person and I said, hey, I heard something like 1800 or something like that. I'm like, do you know if we won the car? Because I had put a max bid in of like 3,000. And he said, let me check. And then I waited and waited and waited. And finally, he sent me a screenshot of the amount. He's like, yep, with fees and everything, you're 2108. So he said, I was like, okay, so can I just go pick it up? He's like, no, actually, you have to wait a few days. But I do have a friend who you can maybe go pick up. They know him well enough. They might give you the car today if you go get a money order made for that exact amount. And then on the other side, you have Nevada Pick Apart. So on each side, both of these places buy these cars and then, you know, part them out, and they're right next door. If they're not running, even better for them. It doesn't really matter. So Justin was actually right next door pulling parts for anything he could find that we might need. But we were also worried that if we didn't buy the car, that it would go there and get chopped up. Now, I had to run, and I said, okay, so your friend can help me get this car out? And he said, yeah. He gave me his address. It's across town in Vegas. And he said, I can't get a hold of him. So I'm like, what's the address? And I just raced over there, and I started knocking on the door. And he opened the door, and he's like, what do you want? He was sleeping, and I'm like, I need you to help me get a car out of the auction. And he immediately just closed the door on me. And I was like, what? And I knocked again. And so he opened it up. He's like, so how much are you going to pay me? And I was like, just get in the truck right now. And I said, I know your friend, you know, so-and-so. And he said, oh, okay, fine. So he got in. We drove over, got the money order. And then he was very helpful. And going in there, he knew the people behind the desk, and they were able to get the car for me. And so without him, it wouldn't have happened. So I'm really grateful for him. And I don't blame him, because if someone came knocking on my door just demanding to get in the truck with them with no notice or anything like that, then I would have done the same thing. So he knew the way. He'd been here before, and he helped us get this car out. And so we gave the paperwork to the driver. And even though the car runs and drives, it's their policy to go get it with the forklift. So at this point, you know, I just was glad to see the car. If it was my Cobra or something, I'd probably be very upset, but I was just happy to see that I had got it and I was getting it out.
Good tires. Alternator?
Yeah. Starts right up, huh?
Yep. 192,000.
Wow.
So,
sounds healthy.
You want to take coolant, all that before you Yeah, man, whoever had it was some fucking yellow. The dent?
Yep, see, so this dent right here, though, we had that when I bought it. Every time we'd see a white Mustang, we'd look. We're like, does it have the dent? Because that's how I would know.
So you could see how dirty the car was, but I was so glad to have it. So I knew I'd be probably doing new carpet and some other things throughout, but just to have it back and to get it, it was a miracle for me, and I was thrilled to have it. The scratch on the front bumper was not there when it was being bid on, so they must have done that with a forklift, so that was a little frustrating. But we'd go right next door to pick apart and get a whole bunch of parts for it.
That looks nice. Yeah, looks good. You got new alternator too? Yep. And I already did the intake manifold gasket and everything when I had it. It had a lot of problems. I put this new power steering line on. I put on a new AC discharge hose. I did a ton on this car already. So.
No, there's your condition, right? Excited.
I'm stoked.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. That's all we had that. Yeah.
So, this one got destroyed. In the flat tires. And yeah, you're ready, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so here it is. You can see the flood muddy water that was already in there. Some missing paint on the front. We're here right next door to the auction at Pick Apart, so we're gonna find some parts. They just happened to bring in a few new white Mustangs to their inventory today, so we're gonna look for some parts for this. But I am stoked, so excited that we got it. It's got all its numbers on it, and I'm gonna take pictures of that. It's all here. We'll see what parts we can dig out over there. It's got the dent there in the back, which I'll probably keep. You know, we're gonna see if we can maybe pull a door because this passenger side door was damaged since I had it. And so anyway, we're gonna go see what parts we can scrounge up now, and we'll keep you updated with other videos. Okay, so we're finding some parts here at Pick Apart. Here's a white V6 Mustang. And, so we got the door, got the fender, gonna take the hood, and should be a lot of the parts. Unfortunately, the wing is different for the trunk, but we'll worry about that later. Okay, so inside Pick Apart we found some white Mustangs here to help with our parts. We're gonna take the hood, the front bumper, some fenders, some side skirts. Unfortunately, it's the 00 rear wing, so it won't really work for what we want, but a lot of good parts here. Now, right as we were coming out the front door with all the parts, we had somebody come over and say, "Hey, is that your Mustang over there?" And I was like, "Yeah," and it had all the writing on the windows and everything, so they thought that that was a car for Pick Apart, and they almost picked it up with their forklift and took it back into inventory. So we're lucky we came out at the right time and that somebody questioned them. And you could just see how happy I was here. I was so excited. It was a long day. It's a lot of stress, but I was so happy to get this car back. And thinking back on it, I could have totally not got it. I could have been outbid. So we went to fill it up, and I actually left the gas cap at the pump because I filled both cars up at the same time. And this is one of my favorite pictures of the car because it just looks trashed, and it's like the end to a movie, like at the very end of a Hollywood movie or something, where they're just, it's a happy ending. The car comes out of the salvage yard, that kind of thing. So even though it's in bad shape, it's just like I've made it to where I needed to be, and now I can work on getting the car back together and cleaning it up and fixing it back up. So it really became the end of one section and the beginning of another. And so I was excited to get this car home and clean it up. I took a ton of pictures of all the information on it so that I could remember them and then scrape it off the windshield later. 192,000, the odometer would come on and off, and it drove perfect.
And the running horse.
So it was a huge relief because not knowing with the flood damage and all that if the car would run right or what, and to just have everything come together and have it work and be like, "Snowy, I'm taking you home, you're going to be okay," and just seeing the green glow from the gauges, because that's what was important to me when I was younger, to see when I first got it. And I was like, I liked the 01 when they changed it to the green glow from those gauges when it was that lime green color, and it was just awesome. And so we unloaded all the parts,
Decorating.
and you know, we had some spares. I had to decorate a little bit, but
Much better.
you know, it was just so nice that it all worked out, and the car drove just fine. I was also amazed that the car was bone stock. They had not changed a thing on it, and so it was exactly like the last time I drove it. Okay, so here she is. We'll do a little walk around. Still have some mud up in here from the flood that it was involved in. Got some missing paint there. Grill's kind of coming out here. Bumper sagging a little bit. It's okay, we have a whole new bumper, hood, fenders, everything that we need. This was there before, kind of like it's gotten a lot worse now. There was that little bubble in it back 10 years ago when I had it. The wheels are the 05 to 09 body style, and so the offset's just a little wrong on it. As you can see, it sticks in way too far in the back. So we're going to put the regular bullet wheels for this body style on it and probably sell these or something. The windshield's good, no cracks or problems there. So pretty happy about that. Real dirty still from that flood. The water line from the flood, you know, it doesn't seem like it really got inside the car. It got up to this point. But the carpet is, I mean, it's filthy. This person was disgusting. And so we're going to completely probably replace this carpet ultimately. Right now I'm going to pull the seats out and vacuum and everything, but you can see how dirty this is. The interior it's pretty good condition. It does have a crack here on the top. But mainly just a good cleaning is really going to help out. And so coming along, we're losing a little paint here, starting to chip, so I'm going to have to find a way to keep that from spreading. The top has a little bit of rust forming, so we'll have to clean that up as well. Something that was really odd, I don't know if they broke the wing off or what they did, but they basically epoxied it back on. Did a crap job doing it too. So we're looking at options right now for a whole new trunk and wing off of a parts car that we're kind of looking at. So we'll see about that. Has a pretty good sized gouge there. So probably a suitcase or something stupid. The dent here was always there, so that's okay. They did scrape it here on the side and on the quarter panel a little bit here. So we'll see if we can at least buff it out a little bit. The door has its pretty bad damage here. We have a whole new door for it in there. And the side skirt also looks like they chipped it off here. Broke it up pretty good. We have a whole new side skirt for it too. So the headlights, yeah, they're kind of starting to peel and everything. They were pointed at the ground, so they need to be at least re-aimed, but we'll probably replace them. So we'll open up the hood here. So despite what it looks like, it actually ran really good on the way back. Just super dirty under here. We'll give it a real good detail, clean it up. I think they added a sound system since I last owned it. But anyway, it's all stock still. That's how it looks. So we'll clean it up real good and see what we can do there. But otherwise, it's not pretty, but it works. The air conditioning was ice cold. I had replaced this discharge hose back when I owned the car, and so it looks like it's still holding up good. Nice cold air the whole ride home. I also had done the intake manifold gasket. I did an oil filter adapter gasket. I replaced one of these power steering hose lines, coil packs. So there was a lot that I had already done with it. Looks like they put a brand new alternator on it. So we'll try to make the rest of the engine look that clean. But anyway, that's what we're looking at, and completely expected. It's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. I have my other cars over here that are, you know, spotless, and so this one, you know, we'll just take care of and make it as good as it can be for what it is, and I'm just extremely happy to have it back. So I started cleaning it up and got the seats out and vacuumed it out and really did a lot of good work just by cleaning it. You can see it came a long way to where it was at least presentable again. This is all the debris that was from underneath the car from the flood. And you know, something I later found out was that it has a new engine in it from when I had it. I noticed as I was going to be doing some work on it that the cam covers were not from the Windsor plant. They were a Romeo cam cover. And so as I looked into it, I looked at my old pictures and saw that I had you know, the orange injectors, and then the engine now had the pink ones, which was from '03 and '04. And I looked at and found some other information on it and saw that it's a replacement engine. So from the point that I owned it to one of those other new owners, somebody had put a new engine in it. So I just started taking off all the lettering and the decals and the stickers and, you know, everything from the old owner, everything from the auction, and just started putting them on my toolbox is where I would put a lot of these stickers if they would come off. And so then I found a friend who didn't mind the '05 Plus wheels, and I swapped them for the old style ones that the car had. Alright, so swap back to my stock wheels that it had when we first got it. So I was still in search for a lot of parts, and the ones I got were crystal white, so they didn't quite match Oxford. And I found this car being parted out, which was a V6 Mustang, and more than anything, I needed the rear wing. Okay, so today we're going to remove the wing and see if this JB Weld hack job made it onto the trunk, or if it's secluded to just the wing itself. Looks like the wing may have cracked at some point and they tried to fix it. So we'll see if we're looking at a new trunk that we need, or just the wing, or what we can do. Okay, that's coming off pretty good. Just get a credit card under here, and it's folding right up. Yeah, I'll work this off there. We'll get some of this bug and tar remover. Good stuff. I'll use that on it now. Okay, so it looks like we're somewhat in luck here. Looks like some kind of double-sided sticky tape that they put down, and it's just kind of crumbling. I don't think it's gonna take the paint with it. And I think just a new wing might solve this problem. So it's looking pretty good under there. As for the wing itself, yeah, I don't know what the heck they were trying to do. It's probably cracked. Looks like it was cracked over here at the bottom. But anyway, maybe I can find an Oxford white wing somewhere and be done. So what's my guess? I'm thinking some ghetto person sat on the rear wing and cracked it. And maybe even that's where their shoe went. So we ended up going down to Las Vegas to get a bunch of parts off of this parts car. At first the guy would stop texting us and we were having issues, and then finally by the end of the night he started texting us again. Then he was really pushy, like, where are you guys at? Come on. And it was like, hey, we've been waiting for you all day. But anyway, we got down there and got a bunch of good parts for it. Kind of hard to see here, but we pulled that fender off parts car here. And the door. And the wing. And the taillights. So got the fender here, the new door, Mach 1 chin spoiler. Pretty much what we came for. Got the taillights, and here's the rear wing on the deck lid. Just decided to take it all. So anyway, that's where we are here in North Las Vegas getting this. So we got a lot of good parts, even some we probably wouldn't need. We were also talking to other people about seats, and in the end, they were like, oh, well, I'm out of town, so it'll be a few weeks, and it never really worked out. But anyway, we got home and went to work, and I just started taking everything off, including the fenders and the doors and everything. And so everything matched up really well. I had actually put on some of the other parts from the junkyard, but they were crystal white and didn't quite match, and so we kind of redid it again with the Oxford white panels from the other parts car. and I worked really hard to get the gap just right on the door and the rocker panel and everything, and so it was coming out really good, and so I was really happy with these used parts.
Okay, so we got the new tail lights in, and it made a real nice difference. They're pretty clean. Here's one of the old ones so that you can see. If you look closely up into it, you can see all the black from the chrome flaking off. That happens when moisture gets in behind the tail light, and this tail light was always doing that even 10 years ago when I owned the car for the first time. But you can see even in here by the reverse light, all the black that's, you know, as the chrome's missing. So the tail lights really are adding to the car really nice. We got everything cleaned out behind here real well with this microfiber towel as we had the tail lights out. So slowly we're just making some nice progress with it and cleaning it up. Okay, don't mind the shadow from the light pole coming through here, but you can see we put the new Oxford white panels on, and they match really nice now. We had the crystal white door and fender, and it just didn't match quite right. So this is now a nice match to the car, and the closer we can get it to the way that I had it, I'll be happier. I don't need it to be mint condition perfect, but just want to get it back to my satisfactory level. And the new wing I'm really enjoying. It's off of that other, you know, the same parts car that we got the door and the fender, and it's real nice. So good to have the wing back on. I'll admit that scared me a little.
So next it was on to new carpet, which was really exciting. So we got the carpet from ACC. It was the mass packing one, the extra thick one, and some Lloyd floor mats, which would match. And so this would be the parchment color to match the car. And so it was a nice, beautiful day to lay it all out and let the sun get to it. And you're supposed to do that to kind of let it be a little more pliable. And then it was nice getting that old carpet out of there from all the years and then putting this in. It really made a big difference on the car, and their product was very good. It was, you have to cut it and trim it a lot more than I thought, and so it was a lot more work than I thought it was going to be just putting it in, but it turned out really nice. My only complaint with the floor mats is they're a little bit longer than usual, so they actually do get stuck. Like when you put the gas pedal down, the gas pedal can get stuck underneath them, and so that's happened to me a few times. So that's the only thing that I'm worried about. The quality of them was really good, so I was really happy with how they turned out otherwise. Next, it was on to the rear pinion seal. It was leaking, and you know, I had practice on this from my Mach 1 Mustang when I had to do it, so it was pretty straightforward. I knew I needed the new pinion nut. I needed some red Loctite so it wouldn't walk off, and so I made a really nice install video on that. That's been pretty helpful. So next, my friend came over to visit with his dark shadow gray GT, which was really cool, and we put the Mach 1 chin spoiler on while he was around and just talked Mustangs. I hadn't seen him for a while. As for the car, I went to the DMV and they gave me a temporary tag and said that it required a safety inspection because it was a salvage vehicle. We haven't had safeties needed in Utah, and so a lot of places didn't offer it anymore. So it was actually hard to find a shop, and so when I went in, I was pretty nervous.
Now, just in case there's a nail in a tire that I don't see or something like that, I have a full-size extra wheel here with really nice tread on it in case they have a problem with that. Now, I cleaned up the engine bay the best I could with the time I had, but I really spent a lot of time on the brake master cylinder area to make sure there was nothing moist so that they couldn't just look at it and say that it was leaking. And, you know, I mean, granted, there's a lot of miles on the car. I'm sure it's going to be moist, you know, here and there, but anyway, it should be good enough, I suppose. Now, I'm not sure if they're going to pop the hubcaps off and pull a wheel to test the brakes or anything like that. And so when I swapped wheels with the bullet wheels, the other guy had locking lug nuts, and so I didn't want to keep those from him and didn't really want them. So there's only 4 lug nuts on each wheel, and so if they pop the caps off and see that, that would probably fail it. So I hurried and stole the locking lug nuts off the Mach 1 that I could put on there if that's a problem. They won't fit on there with the hubcaps on, but if I drive up with the missing hubcaps and looking like this, they might it might be more trouble than it's worth. So we'll see if they even take the wheels off. I don't think that they would really check, but it was missing the fuel cap, so I undid this 10mm bolt and swapped out my Mach 1's fuel cap in case that was going to be a problem. Now the rear diff I'm a little worried about because, as you know, I just did the pinion seal, and so it's not leaking anymore, but it was caked up horribly, and I haven't had the time to really, you know, clean it completely. So hopefully I might have to explain to them what had happened there and that it's not leaking, but it still looks bad.
So I went into the shop and I was really nervous about it, but they were very nice, and I did see them pointing around at some things, and I'm like, I'm gonna probably have to explain to them about their rear diff, how it's really not leaking anymore, and some stuff like that. And then I noticed the tech who was out there, I actually recognized him. I was his supervisor not long ago, and so I went out and started talking with him, and he was really cool. And so he's like, I explained what was going on in the story of the car, and he said, yeah, you're good to go, you're all set, and everything looked good. So I was relieved that that part was over. So I also met a Mustang friend there, a good one, and he just kind of showed up right at the right time, and kind of eased my mind a bit, and we talked and had a good time. So I then went to the DMV and got the plates, and so I was ready to roll. I was ready to go on the road, and I was really excited that this part of it was all over, and I was ready just to drive the car now. So here I found myself years later, the same parking lot, because I work at the same place, and I was just thrilled to have this car here again. So I love seeing the car in the parking lot, just like it was years ago when I used to sit in on my brakes, and you know, it was just a fun story. There were a few people who were still working there after the 10 years, and so it was fun to tell them that story. But now it was on to this rear wing and putting the new one on. And so I had the trunk all cleaned up from before, and it was fun to hear these kids get off the bus and like my, quote, race cars. Which one do you like the best?
I like the white one.
The white one?
I like the yellow one. Actually, the red one.
They're all good, huh?
I like the red one.
All right. And as I'd walk around the neighborhood, there was this V6, and I was just eyeing it down. I'm like, man, I could make those Oxford white pieces fit on my car. And then I'd see other cars like this, and I'd look at it the same kind of era and be like, you know, that car's still on the road. I'm sure glad that mine is. And I'm real big on nostalgia, so here's my apartment complex. I went back and visited the same place where it was for sale by the older guy, and I couldn't get it there. And so just walking up in the same situation and looking in and still seeing that coin delete and everything, but now knowing that the car was mine, and now being able to get in it and drive it wherever I wanted was just an awesome experience. And so I'd go drive around with Justin a lot, and we really enjoyed just the fact that we had this car back. And so it was looking pretty good. In fact, it's probably better condition here than it was when he had it. So, you know, I was pretty excited about that. We would drive all around town, and so our next stop was to go over to the college where it was parked, where I had left the note on it. And so I parked in pretty much the same parking spot and just thought about that. And so there's something about, you know, when the car does not belong to you and you don't have the right to even look in the window because it's somebody else's car, and then changing that to where now it's your car and you own it, the other day, you can do whatever you want with it. And in the same parking lot, so you can see this car for so long has been somebody else's that I wasn't able to have, and so be here with a car, even though it's a GT and you know it's a little bit older to me, I'd rather have it than a lot of other cars. So we even went back to this area here where it got washed out, and
then
parked it
coming
there. And I
down
always
right
wonder if the
here. So
owner
this is where the
sees
car
us or not
was.
as we kind of
You can
park
see
here.
all
And
the
you can
debris
see
that's
this
still here.
chunk right here was
just
still
how
where
bad
the
this
car
was.
had compiled all of the branches and the dirt and everything under it. So, you know, it was still early enough from when it happened that the reminders of what had happened were still there. And so I was just so excited to have the car. And whenever I drive by, I look at this car. He has like this little Chevy compact car, and I'm just like, man, you chose that over this awesome V8. And so, anyway, people have their own preferences, but I was thrilled to have this car back. So I continued to work on the car, and I really like this time of year. In the autumn, it starts to cool down. That's when I first got the car. I got it basically in November, and here we are October. And so for Halloween, I decided to take a lot of the extra parts that I had and put them out into the yard. And I felt bad almost because some kids actually stopped and they said, "Did you wreck your car?" And they were very concerned, and I opened the garage. I said, "No." I said, "It's still here. These are just extra parts." And so I could see what they were thinking. I guess my Halloween decorations were a little too good that year. So it was a lot of fun. And a lot of these parts would end up on Justin SVT's project cars as he's been redoing them. And so check his channel out. I'll put a link to it in the description. But it was fun just to look out the window and see these. Nobody really messed with them, thank goodness. And I tried to make sure they wouldn't blow away in the wind, because it seems to pick up and get pretty windy here around the October time. But I turned the sprinklers off and just kind of let it do its thing. So this is something that I could easily do with all the extra parts that I have each year. But we'll see if I do it again later or not. So decorating for all the holidays and everything was a lot more fun. I could go up on the roof, and as I'm putting up the Christmas lights, look down, and I was so excited to see that the GT was here. It's like having a family member back. This car was meant so much to me. But I loved driving it to the Ford dealership, and as I looked at all the cars on the lot, I thought this one means the most to me. Then just taking it to lunch was good. And finally, I was ready to put a nice set of bullet wheels on it. So Justin SVT gave me a very low mileage set that he had, and that was very nice of him. And so I just love the way that this car looks with the bullets. And here I am again. Here's a stormy night that's coming, and I'm just thinking, okay, I'm going to park the car in the same spot over here, and this is where it would have been flooded out. And I was just so excited that that wasn't going to happen to it this time. It was going to be nice and safe in my driveway. I really like the lime green color gauges that these have. I remember when they changed it from 99, it was like a teal color. In 2000, it was a teal color, and then 01, they went to this lime green type color. Next, it was time to work on the exhaust, so I put a X-pipe on with the stock mufflers to see what it would sound like. So it's always fun waiting for the UPS man, right? So I got it bolted on there pretty quick. It was a nice system because it would come in pieces, and so you could adjust each side at a time. My SLP had, a bunch of brakes in it on the Mach 1, and so it was too much to where it would leak. And so the one that I had here actually worked really nice, and so I could put it on, get it nice and firm, mounted, and then put the rest of it together. So first I wanted to see what the car would sound like with the X-pipe and the stock mufflers, because I had heard a car like that years ago, and I thought it sounded pretty good, but I wanted to see how loud it was inside the car. So not too bad of a sound, almost like a Flowmaster, but very quiet. From inside the car, it still sounds stock. SVT drove it with me. I'll let you listen to it here. But we had a plan in the first place anyway, and that involves taking some boreless stinger mufflers off of an IRS kit. So this was kind of a makeshift kit that he had, and he bought the actual boreless stingers kit, and so we took this one that was kind of hacked together anyway, and decided to take the mufflers out of it so I could go have them welded in on the GT in town. So we jumped back in the Yukon and headed on over to our local exhaust shop, which has always been pretty good to us, and just dropped the car off there. And so while we were there, it was a little nostalgic. We went inside and remembered when we would see these exhaust tips and pipes and wish that we had them on our V6 Mustang back in the day. And so it was kind of fun just to remember back, because we used to go to the shop when we were younger. We put a twin, a stock GT cat back on our V6s, which didn't sound too bad, back in the day. And so anyway, just kind of back to here, we decided to drop the car off, and they said it was going to be a few hours. They might not even get to it today. And so when we were dropping it off, we saw this really cool Z28 that's back there, hood up. Yeah, it looks like it's been sitting for a while. Poor car. It's a pretty cool car, same era here as the Mustang, and that's an LS1 car. So that's a 305, 320 horsepower car here, just kind of rotting away. It's kind of sad. A lot of potential. Hopefully somebody fixes it up and gets it into some better shape, because they're kind of disappearing for this era and body style.
and you know, that's even more horsepower than the GT. So anyway, we checked back and they had it in the shop, but not quite done yet. So I'll give you guys an update, and when we pick it up, I'll show you what it sounds like now with the off-road X-pipe and the boreless Stinger mufflers welded in. So really excited for that, really excited to enjoy the nice cool fall era time with a nice sounding car. That's about the time that Justin, SVT, and I got our Mustangs. It seems like we always pick them up in November. So, and just really excited that I got the boreless Stingers welded into the GT. I was waiting patiently all day, and of course I called in towards the end of the day and they said it's not ready yet. It'll be the next day in the morning, and so all morning I was waiting for the call, never got it. So when I finally got off of work, I called in and they said, oh yeah, it's ready, come and get it. And it was kind of funny because since it went overnight with it, you know, my wife came in the room out of nowhere and just said, wait a minute, where's the GT and where's the truck? Because I had the truck at my brother's house, had the GT getting the mufflers welded in, and I was just thinking, hey, if you watch the channel, you'd know exactly where it is. Honestly, I think it sounds perfect. It's just the right level. It's very loud in person, by the way, and I had the whole parking lot staring me down, even the mechanics, and I was like giving them a thumbs up, like, don't you like this? Isn't this kind of, aren't you guys proud that you installed these for me? And so, anyway, sounds really good. I'll show you a few more clips of it here. All right, first startup with the boreless. There we go. So my Terminator has the same mufflers with an H pipe, and to tell you the truth, it does sound very similar. So I took it over and let Justin SVT drive it around, and he kind of embarrassed me in the neighborhood. Okay, yeah. And this is like seriously echoing throughout the whole streets, and it's really loud in person, so I was a little bit embarrassed.
Now it was time to put some new suspension on the car, and I really wanted the Tokiko Blues. I had them on my V6 Mustang, and the Mach 1s come with Tokikos, but you could see how bad this was bouncing. The car was really squirrely on the freeway. It was almost unstable and almost unsafe. And now with them in, you could see how stiff this was, and so that also made a really good install video, as everything else that I was doing on the car. So the car was really good for the channel as well. You can see I just swapped everything over here, and the install was pretty straightforward just because we had done it before. You have to really make sure that that top nut stays put. It's kind of hard to get them off otherwise, and I remember working on it for like hours when I was doing it on my V6, wondering why the nut kept spinning, and it's because you have to hold it still at the top with that screwdriver. And I really didn't have a problem spending, decent money on good parts for this car. I planned to keep it forever. And one of those, the car, was having a hard time starting, and it needed a new fuel pump. And so I went and got a Ford OEM one with the basket, with the sending unit, everything. When I first owned the car, the gas gauge would actually run out when it was a quarter tank. So I got a new fuel pump, and then this sound happened. Now, as I had mentioned earlier, the car actually has a new engine from an 03 or an 04, But unfortunately, I started hearing a little tapping sound, and it turned out that the actual timing tensioner had punched through the tensioner arm. As you can see, big gaping hole in it here, and so it you were hearing that chain, rubbing on it and making a ticking sound. So we did a whole new timing set on it. We were really good about getting the cam holding gears in place and making sure nothing moved. We lined everything up dot to dot, installed the new chains, tensioners, tensioner arms, and Justin SVT was a big help. And so anyway, started right up, and it just sounded beautiful. So anyway, that's kind of where the car is right now, and I have a full playlist that I'll put in the video description that shows each of these steps along the way. I'm sure I even missed some details here that I'm going to regret I didn't get in the video. But check the video description for not only what I've done with the car, but how I can help you step by step with anything that you need help with. So it's been a good experience for me, and I hope to pass it on to everybody else. But anyway, this car, as you can tell, has meant a lot to me. I was very happy to get it back. New steering wheel. There's a video there. I forgot to mention that. I got a new steering wheel and coolant lines, all kinds of stuff. But anyway, thanks for watching. And if you're new to the channel, feel free to subscribe. Thanks, guys.